All right. Welcome everybody to our Women in Flexo Lunch and Learn. We're excited to have you here. I'm going to share my screen real quick with you and we'll get this going. So I'm Catherine Haynes. I'll introduce myself again here in a second, but today's Lunch and Learn is Reclaim Your Definition of Success, and we have Alyssa Denney here with us. So some of you may have heard her speak before. So we're excited to have her back again speaking for Women of Flexo. I'm the chair. Kirsten is our vice chair. She's not on today, but you've probably seen her a lot as well if you've joined any of our events. And so we're always here and available if you ever want to reach out and learn a little bit more or find more information out about the Women of Flexo. For those that are new to the Women of Flexo or just joining your first event, this is just a basic explanation of what we're all about. Ultimately, we're about supporting women in the industry and just helping to connect people and connect you to our great Flexo industry. So we have a lot of events throughout the year where we will try to get together at different industry events and host events. And then we also have our Women of Flexo event that we host usually around March of each year. So if you haven't joined one of those, I strongly encourage you to get to one of those events as well. Those are great in-person events and a great way to meet a whole bunch of other women in our industry. So a little bit about Women of Flexo. We have 4 key committees. And these committees are built around trying to uplift women in the industry. So we have our leadership development where you can get involved in professional development. We have recruitment and engagement where we try to actively get out there and engage. So that's part of how we connect through industry events and through our Women of Flexo event. Marketing and strategy, we have that as a fantastic committee that just helps get awareness out there of all the great things that we're trying to do for the industry and do for women in our industry. And then we have our mentorship program, which I also love, where we really try to connect and create one-on-one experiences for people new to the industry with those that are veterans in our industry. So whether you're on either side of that coin, mentorship is also a great committee to be part of. So if you're interested in learning any more about these, you can always go to our website, but then I'm listing up here or showing up here the present chairs for each one of those committees. We actually have a rollover that's happening in July. So these will be changing up, but if you reach out to any of these ladies, they'll definitely get you connected to the new chair. So we're always excited about having people join to participate in whatever capacity you're able to in any of our committees. And a little bit, I want to pull up some notes here I had for some things I wanted to mention about the mentorship specifically. There is an active call right now for people that are new to the industry or veterans in the industry that want to help partner and work together as part of the mentorship program. So that is presently open. That window is open through August 1st. And it'll go a little bit after August 1st as they're trying to connect the different pairings of new and veteran participants. But definitely use this QR code if you are interested in either being a mentor or a mentee in the mentorship program. And really, it's for anybody. So it's not necessarily for printers or graphics people. It's for literally anybody. So if you're in sales, if you're in HR, if you're in accounting, if you are in production, if you're in management, whatever you are doing and whatever whatever kind of years of experience you have in this industry or don't have in the industry, this is the program for you to really get connected with another woman in the industry. And then also they have lots of events they host throughout the year where you get to meet other women, some one-on-one of virtual events, and then there's some educational programs along with that as well. And then I'll just re-plug the steering committee. If you are looking to be, if you're looking for a leadership role in one of these committees and would like to participate, please let us know. You can use this link here. Just shoot us that you're interested via the link, and we'll get you connected. So with that, let's see here. Yeah, let me introduce you to Alyssa. She has been in the printing and packaging or printing and converting industry, specifically in corrugated and folding carton package. So if you don't know what that is, again, join the Women of Flexo. We will get you educated so you know everything about all the different segments of Flexo. She is presented for us before. She's really great at connecting with people and specializes in this. And I'm really excited to see her present again. And yeah, so she mentioned she has 2 kids here, so I'm sure she'll share some stories as well. So with that, Alyssa, I'm going to pass the ball to you.
Awesome. Thank
Okay?
you. Yep.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm going to click a few buttons to take over the screen here.
Mhm.
Can I, let me know, Kat, when you can see it.
Yep, we can see it.
Great. All right, so this is our subject today. Thank you all for having me. I'm excited to be back. We were joking before the call that we're all besties in Women of Flexo, so it's great to see some familiar names. And what we're talking about today is, hopefully you registered because you know what we're talking about, but the goal is to talk about maybe old definitions of success that you have held. And more importantly, remind ourselves we have permission to pivot and change, and our life priorities will shift over time. And so let's think about how we define success for ourselves and let it change over time. That's what we're going to be talking about. I also wanted to point out that, my opinions come from a variety of influences, great coaches, great authors. Some people on the top of the screen here are people that I've done coaching with individually over the years. And some books. A lot of times people will ask this in the Q&A, like, where can I find more information? Or what influences, what books do you love? So the intention is to send this deck out with the links so that you could, if you like what you're hearing, you have some resources to follow up with. And we have just a short time today, so my intention is to help plant a seed, but then give you the resources to keep thinking about this. So the agenda is to first talk about, what are we sort of within, what are we up against, this high achievement culture that we are all sort of living in America. We're going to look at the definitions of success that maybe you've been carrying. So we have a little reflection to think about that. And ultimately, the goal is to reclaim your definition that it can be something different now or into the future. We will have 2 journal prompts. So one is like a 3-minute short journal prompt we're going to have in a couple minutes. Because no one likes awkward silence, I'll play a little bit of music for those 3 minutes, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to think about yours. And I really feel like if I spent this 25, 30 minutes really giving advice or talking about my story, then you wouldn't get what I want you to get, which is more importantly, thinking about your story, your version of success. That is what I want to leave behind, is time for you to do that. So we'll have 2 opportunities. The second opportunity towards the end, there was a PDF attached. If you got a reminder email for today's webinar, there was a PDF attached. That is an exercise. If we have time at the end, we'll spend some minutes starting it. If we run out of time, it's your takeaway. And if you don't have it already, later when we're ready to do it, Chris will drop a PDF in the chat as well, just in case maybe you didn't see that email. Or maybe you want to now go dig in your email, grab that PDF attachment, open it on one screen, or maybe print it. So just a heads up that a PDF that was provided ahead of time will be towards the end. Okay, so the first topic, what are we talking about? Our high achievement culture in America. This is a heavily researched topic in organizational psychology, and it's specifically, there is a phenomenon called the arrival fallacy. And this is it says the distinct psychological script, but when we're striving for something, we arrive there, and shortly after we feel flat. And sometimes if we feel flat about it, or we're like, okay, well, then sometimes we can even blame ourselves for putting so much into it that now I'm disappointed. It's this sort of that arriving somewhere is actually a fallacy, and that would make you happy or sustain your happiness. And what causes this, the mechanism there is research shows that our traditional milestones of success were built on external approval. Unfortunately, what you see in the next bullet point is external approval metabolizes quickly. So if you've reached a summit or a goal, you may get that external approval, but unfortunately, we kind of eat it up. And quickly, then our brains have this sudden, like, to the third bullet point, what's next? And then we find ourselves in this self-reinforcing loop, call it a cycle, where you meet a milestone and quickly after you're kind of like our brains pivot to what's the next output. And we never really spend much time enjoying that achievement, certainly probably not resting much, reflecting, or knowledge consolidation, meaning compounding what we learned and like letting it integrate for very long. So that's what we're doing this constant, next. The data shows that many Americans feel overwhelmed even as they progress. So this is something you might be feeling. This, how do I define success and why does it keep feeling like I can't reach it? A couple stats for people who like data is that over 40% of employees are reporting acute daily worry. So we probably all have worries at times, but this 40% measure is actually a record high for acute worry. And in the second bullet, the trap of this motivation zapping effect that it has is 60% of people, American workers, are reporting that acute worry or stress is actually causing exhaustion and then disengagement. So it's so counterproductive to strive, feel overwhelmed. When I feel overwhelmed, I actually want to disengage. Disengaging keeps us from doing what we want to accomplish. So that's kind of that's the big bummer that's going on here. And then the third point here is when you get to, they call it the tipping point of coping versus threat. So you may feel like, well, I'm coping, I'm going, but I'm resting and I'm making it and I'm surviving, it's fine. What might really be happening is a threshold from coping to actually staying in a threat state. So our nervous systems are heightened. It's biological. There's a threat. Our cortisol goes up, our adrenaline goes up, and we run from the threat or we fight the threat, right? So in bold here, you see that oftentimes when we feel like we're in this threat state, or if we stay in this threat state, that actually we to try to even maintain our performance or try to move through or increase our performance in a certain situation, we are often doing that with a sheer force of will. We think our willpower can just power through. We can make it through this. We can make it through this week, this month, that next presentation. I know what we all know truly is like the seasons run together. And we do ask ourselves, like, well, when does it ever stop? Like, there'll be the next thing. So this sheer force of will and continuing to kind of just drive ahead all the time. Of course, that's leading to emotional exhaustion, physical exhaustion. And if we have that, like the last slide, that sort of what's next, we have this like, it says plummeting sense of personal accomplishment in the data, keep driving ourselves to like, it's still not good enough. And so when our brains stay in patterns like this, our brains, they go down pathways that we know, comfortable, familiar. We go down pathways that are really driven. Thankfully, and we talked about this at the Women of Flexo conference, our brains have neuroplasticity that can be taught a different pathway. You can make a different choice. You need to walk it habitually to create a new pathway, to make it a new habit and a new pattern. Thankfully, we can do that. But if we don't do that work, then our brains really default to the patterns that we know. It will stay in this state, this high achievement, and all the sort of things that come with it. One of my favorite coaches that you saw on one of the previous slides, Julie Santiago, this was actually in her email newsletter this week, and I captured it because I was like, this is exactly what I'm trying to say too, is this nervous system, they've become so familiar with the dopamine we get from achievement, praise, urgency, solving things, pressure, deadlines. Those are giving us dopamine hits when we accomplish little pieces of it, and so we just keep striving for more dopamine. If you get peace and quiet, it can feel flat. Like we might all say, and if you're mothers, oh, if I just get some peace and quiet, all I want is just a little peace and quiet. And I'm sure many of you, I know I have, if I get some peace and quiet for some odd reason, I don't know what to do. And like say my kids go to a baseball game with their grandma and grandpa after school, my husband will sort of laugh at me because I'll be in the kitchen like staring, like, and then I pace around a little bit, like he's like, can you sit down? I'm like, I don't know how. Like, I'm sure you have felt that. Like when you get some peace and quiet, you actually freeze up, like you don't know what to do with it. It feels boring. It feels flat. It feels like I should be doing something. And so we could call this burnout or exhaustion. Even worse so, though, if not just exhaustion, if you realize that like this whole thing is actually your identity, this is what you always are doing. It's where you get your validation, productivity, providing your self-worth. Just doing that next thing makes me a good mom. Getting the laundry folded before I fall asleep makes me a good housekeeper. Whatever it is that you're doing, this productivity, sort of assigning it to your self-worth, is when I think we've taken it too far. So that's really what we're talking about, this sort of thing that we're up against. There is a cultural shift happening, and this data is referring to a post-pandemic workforce. This pushback against traditional metrics of success is experiencing, we're seeing professionals pivot away from standard reward systems, like what you see on the left in this table, to value first career structures. So in the table on the left side, it's compensation, it's trajectories, job titles, title accumulation, you see at the bottom, sacrificing personal things because that is what we reward in our high achievement culture, is doing, doing, doing. And the reframing that's happening on the right side, thankfully, is people starting to talk about exactly what we're doing here today. The modern reframe is we are valuing autonomy and flexibility as part of our reimbursement. Like I prioritize, if I were to look for a new job, these things are at the top of many people's lists. Do I have this as part of my payback for the time and experience and knowledge that I'll apply for you as my employer? We are prioritizing psychological safety. I love this concept. If you haven't heard that phrase before, I'd love you to jot it down and look it up. It's really talking about the safety in your space to like share ideas. Well-being is non-negotiable, and our goals are more aligned with our personal interests. So our professional goals also have a payoff for what we care about. So I wanted to get to that journal prompt. What we're thinking about is, where does this start for you? What does it look like for you? What did you believe about success looking back at these different phases in your life? Who influenced that belief? So this is an opportunity. If you just have a piece of paper, there's no template for this. I'm going to do about 3 minutes on the clock. Just jot down, like sort of in this table, when, in childhood, success meant showing off my art projects. It's something that evolves. When I was a teenager, it meant this. When I was in my first jobs, I really thought this was success. And look back and think about what's sort of already changed over time. So I'm going to stop talking so you can do that. I'm going to play a little music for about 3 minutes. All right, so that was like 2 and 3/4 of a minute. So what I did while you, towards the end of that, was clicked on some notes that I had made. So in case you were feeling a little stuck, I'm sharing kind of an example. Like I talked about in childhood, it might have been like, look what I did. We loved a lot of gratification as young kids. In the teen years, it might have meant popular at school or within my peer group. For me, A's earned allowances from my parents. Um, I loved music and sports and everything, but accomplishment, success meant the lead in the musical or the first chair in band or varsity sports. I remember wanting, having a birthday party, but hoping everybody would come. Like I invited everybody and it was in the backyard, and so it's like that was what it meant then. Upon graduation, man, it meant getting out of my small town. Success would mean I didn't stay here. Well, what's funny is I'm back. I didn't stay, but I'm back. So these things, they change, right? I really just I was waiting for the more prestigious college to accept me. But ultimately, I didn't even like living in that city, and I reverted to a different college anyways that I originally didn't think was cool enough. So, gosh, just the way that these things change. In my first jobs, it takes a couple things kind of trying to find your way. But I recall in my first sort of career job, I really just wanted to speak. I wanted to be at the table and I wanted to be heard. I wanted people to think that I was valuable to be there. And if I was organized, it meant I was in control of my projects. And ultimately, I wanted that sort of rapid growth and path to leadership. And I was going to keep working really hard at that. Well, in my 30s, especially the first half, so I'll be 36 in a couple of months. So this first half of my 30s, man, what a shift again into being a wife and a mother. At that point, success meant survival. It meant my kids were alive, they were fed. I slept enough to make it through the day. I didn't want to get fired. And hopefully my husband still liked me. And it was like that survival mode for a few years there. My kids are now 5 and 6, and I feel like survival mode, the fog sort of maybe lifted about 2 years ago when the younger one exceeded the age of 3. Like they can put their own socks on most of the time. So I feel like, again, that was a really sharp pivot to all of a sudden motherhood within a working environment as well. But I have been, so the star here is like, this is about where I'm at, mid 30s, mid career. I've been thinking about the fog lifted and what does it mean to me now? Well, also, let's remember that it will mean something different down the road. And as you filled out, maybe in these decades of your life, you've been able to look a little bit about like how it's changed. So there's an example for you. And if you've arrived at some of your goals along the way, no matter where you are, that means that your definitions worked. They did work for that time period. The hustle, it worked. It worked for me too. Like I'm so grateful for the hustle and for the things that I did, apply myself to, and it got us where we are. Maybe you joined today because you're interested and could it look different? Or maybe if you're an early career, you're hoping it could look different. You maybe seen something in your family growing up and you're like, God, I don't want it to look like that. But for all of us, what got you here won't get you there all the time, right? So these old definitions, it's okay to shed them and think about where you're trying to go next. This was a book that's brand new, but Daniel Laporte it's called Bless and Release: The Physics of Letting Go. And their research showed thousands of people responses are always immediate and emphatic, that they're exhausted from trying to be worthy, that these control issues that we're having to try to prove and produce for our worthiness is the source of exhaustion, and releasing that going forward. So there's a link in this file too if you want to keep reading about that. So we have about 5 minutes left until the top of the hour that this was scheduled for. We'll hang around for like questions and discussion for probably about 15 minutes afterwards if you can stay. But what I want to introduce here is the reflection exercise. The PDF that was provided is another resource to help guide you through. What have you been thinking about or holding yourself to? The second page is looking at what is really a non-negotiable for you now or in the future. And what can you give yourself permission to sort of evolve into? I wanted to share as a wrap up for me, as I've been, doing that kind of work and that kind of thinking, I've been thinking a lot about this I already was. And I was excited in March to join the Women of Flexo conference, a panel, and talked about this for just a few minutes. And I've continued to think about it since. And when they asked me to sort of bring this more information to the surface here today, it's been a great opportunity for me to keep thinking about it. And so I wanted to share in these last couple minutes where I stand today, again, as an example for you, as you use that takeaway to keep working on it for yourself. So if there was somebody out, if someone was describing me from the outside, I put this thing, my current definition of success as this person in quotes, at a high level, mid-career, married, working mom, 2 elementary kids, managing a home, those sort of things. What matters to me now? These are the things that I keep coming up with. My sense of security is built upon the things listed in number 1. I wanted to point out, of course, my kids and my marriage, but for me, my home is very important. It shows up down at the bottom of number 1 in sort of debt management and financial freedom. I have this thing about like, as long as I can pay my mortgage, I have safety inside my home and inside my spaces. I think there might be some generational trauma that's coming from. And if I have a retirement sort of plan, there's this like sense of security financially, financial freedom equals I have choices. If I have choices, I feel like I have safety. And it just kind of builds the sense of security of these things that are really number 1. Number 2 and number 3 related to my work. I still want to be seen as valuable to my colleagues like I did in my 20s. That hasn't gone away. For me, the psychological safety means not fearing they don't see me as valuable, not fearing or constantly justifying myself for being valuable or being worthwhile to be there. Number 3, hope to be in more of a consultative role, technical, solutions-oriented, providing guidance. And ideally, success means I'm having a little fun too. So I have time for my girlfriends. My hobbies are to design things. I want to be able to go places. So here's an example. Like this is what I feel now is success for me, and yours will be different based on where you're at in your life. I have also included my contact information in the back of the deck. So I hope you'll look me up and we can chat about it and you can give me some reactions. We can talk about how this is going for you. But I think as we wrap up here, we can take questions, and I hope that you'll take the PDF and spend some time thinking about what is shifting for you and deliberately look at how that needs to change. So that brings us to time, Kat.
That was awesome. You always do such a great job. And you hit on so many relevant points. That really resonated for me. So I love that. Very, very nice. Right now, I don't see any questions. So if you have questions that you would like to ask Alyssa right now, please feel free to add them to the Q&A block and we'll post them up. And I know we have a couple other panelists. So if you guys want to unmic and ask questions, that would be, or I guess open your mic, not unmic. It would be miking. Feel free to chime in with some questions. I really love that you put together some of those PDFs or the PDF to help us kind of think through that exercise. For me, it was thinking through the first set of questions you were asking about all the intervals. I'm in my 50s now, my early 50s. So that's where I am. And it was interesting to see yours. I resonated with a lot of the goals that you had set. And it would be interesting to hear what other women, what resonated, how they differed. And I totally agree with you. Like over the years, it's amazing how much it shifts. What you thought was success in your 20s versus in your 40s is, or 30s and 40s and 50s and so on. It really does evolve. And I was even trying to think like, what will I think is success? What is my vision of success in my 70s today? Because it would be interesting to fill out all the decades right now, and then compare it to what you think is going to be success when you get to that decade, right? Because that would be kind of interesting. What I think 70s would be like now, I don't know. In my 70s, if I'll agree with my younger version.
Right.
So that would be kind of a fun exercise, I think.
I know. It's always funny. It's like, if only I knew then that thing wasn't important, man, I would have saved myself some heartache. Right.
Yeah, that was one thing that resonated when I was a kid. My father, whenever trauma you have traumas in your young life. And every time I would come to him crying or upset about something, he would look at me and he would say, is this going to matter in 5 years? And that was always his thing. And I would have to sit there and really pause and think, gosh, in 5 years, no, I won't even be at this high school anymore. It's not going to matter anymore.
Sure.
So, move on. And so I think that kind of echoes what you're saying is when you
Yeah.
think about the next layer, the next decade or level of whatever it is, it kind of gives you some perspective to step back.
Yeah.
Hey, Jenny.
Hey, I have a comment, Alyssa.
Yeah.
Fantastic job as always. If I look back through, and I was filling out my chart as well too for the decades, and thinking back in high school and like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think of me? How am I going to be perceived in the future, whatever too. And looking back on that now, I'm realizing that back then I shouldn't, who cares, right? Because if you start worrying about what everybody thinks about you, you start conforming to what their ideas are instead of trying to figure out who you are. Oh my gosh, I
Mhm.
just sound like my mom. That's exactly what she would have said too. And and even sometimes whenever I feel like I have imposter syndrome, it's because I'm doubting myself because I don't know how I'm going to be perceived by other people. And then all of a sudden they say, "Oh my gosh, that's a great idea. Where have you been all this time?" Whatever. And it's really interesting how if you just follow your own path, then you're gonna figure out who you truly are, which is awesome. So that's a
That's
little
great.
deep.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Well, we do have a question in the
Yeah,
Q&A. Can you see it, Alyssa?
I can. Yep, I clicked it open. So,
Okay.
in your early 20s, what steps did you take to be viewed as valuable? How did you show that you wanted to grow and not just stay in the same place? So, I feel like the steps I took was kind of what I wrote in the second row there, being organized. So, in my 20s, I was like a project manager in a corrugated manufacturer for point of purchase displays. There's all these components. And to show that I was valuable, I was prepared and organized. I spent the time, I kept track of stuff, I followed up on stuff. I showed others that it was important to me that they were accountable to what they said because I would follow up, whether that's the production scheduler, someone in the fulfillment center, things, commitments other people made, I would follow up on because I'm showing that like I'm driving this project. And when the projects would succeed, be less of a mess, people liked working with me. They're like, oh, Alyssa's projects are clean. That meant that to me, I was showing value. So that's how I did it. It was like, what can I control? I can't necessarily control that they like me or not. I can do my work well. That always felt like what
And
I could control. Go ahead.
yeah, I love that. And another thing, when I think back to my 20s, like I asked lots of questions. I was just always trying to like seek information and
Yeah.
trying to read a lot. And I think you when you seek expertise from people that are uh, more advanced in their careers, and you show that initiative to go learn new things and try new things, I think that goes a long way too to
Hmm.
making people understand that you're coming to the table willing to grow, you're wanting to grow,
Hmm.
like, right,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you're seeking their expertise. And
And the second part of the question was then how did you express that you wanted to do more? I think it's like through what Kat's saying, you asked questions and you found resources.
Mhm.
I would tell those people sort of on the side what I wanted because they would sponsor me.
Mhm. That's
And
great.
how I even got into an FTA conference one time, and then it happened to be the year the Women of Frexel were forming in 2019. Was someone I didn't report to them. They didn't control my destiny, but it was Jeff Rosnack, and it was a mentor. And I said, "Hey, I'm interested." I would ask him tons of questions about our work in pre-press and pre-flight and proofing, and then I would tell him what I hope to do someday, and he would like bring me along because he knew that I wanted to do that. It's like that's the sponsorship or mentorship. So that would be my suggestion to the person posing the question is just like it may not be blatant, but you're telling people that you what your sort of hopes and dreams are. And then when they believe in you, they like help you get there.
That's great. Yeah.
Wife and mother, ages 2 and 5, approach career goals during the early kid years in the midst of demanding. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like I said, I have boys, they're 5 and 6. When they were 2 and 3, or like they were so close in age, I know I joke about like survival and like not remembering. I really kind of feel like I blacked out a lot of it. But approaching my career goals, I would say it was authenticity. Thankfully, at that point, I had a boss that also had young kids. It was a male, but he had young kids and he was very involved in that. One time he had his 10-month-old daughter like on his knee in a call because it's just what happened that day. And I was like, okay, so I'd find my people that I could be authentic with. Maybe it's not your boss, but there's probably somebody in your company that's like understanding where you are. And I was just like finding like part of that survival was like having your people to talk about your challenges. So it's like if I could just get this off my chest that it was hard to show up today and we had a bad morning and I feel terrible about drop off. Okay, but now I'm here, like getting it out to the person who hears me, I feel a little bit more like I can move forward. And so now I'm sort of like, I did this thing this morning and back to my career goals. Okay, now I need to refocus on what I have to do today from now until 5 p.m. And we'll shift again at 5 p.m. and go back to that thing I was stressing about, right? But it was like, I would say it's being authentic, having some people to talk to about it, and then sort of, yeah, compartmentalizing. Like at 5 o'clock, it wasn't a choice to shut it off. Did some of my peers keep working all night? Maybe. I didn't, that's not what I was going to do because it was like this other thing was a priority. So I did. I started to compartmentalize 8 to 5 and 5 to 10 and 8 to 5 and 5 to 10 and they have to be separate. It didn't mean sometimes I didn't get online after they went to bed, but I had to switch and it was turning things on and off. That's what it looked like for me.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. Yeah.
Chris would like to answer this question. Oh, no, it went away.
I think he was
Don't
just
want to
saying
answer the question, Chris?
you did it live. You answered it live. All right. So we don't have any other questions coming up in the poll or in the Q&A right now.
Will this be recorded? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I see it now.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That was a question asked earlier, but yep, it'll
Awesome.
be, it is recorded. It will be available. I think in the Member Connect was where it'll be available. So we encourage you guys to take the slide deck, to take those resources that Alyssa created and, continue to think about this. It was a great job. Thank you, Alyssa.
Yeah,
Fantastic,
awesome. It was very
as
fun.
always.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yep. Talk to y'all later.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Bye.